I know you heard me on the radio. Flexing. She loved the sound of my voice, it's the best thing. Daydreaming of the jazz all day. Pick up the phone late night with Larry K. I know you heard me on the radio. Flexing. She loved the sound of my voice, it's the best thing. Daydreaming of the jazz all day. Pick up the phone late night with Larry K.
So, Rutgers fans, we finally got a dominant win that, you knew we were going to get this dominant win. So it's not as if this is a huge, revelation or something we didn't expect. But for all the dominance we've had in games against teams from lower tier conferences, this was the first time I think you can look at it and truly say that all of the pieces and parts are in place to get us where we want to go as a team against stiffer competition and going into the, crux of the schedule and the difficulty that, is the opening couple games of our Big Ten in-conference schedule coming up early in 2023. You saw primarily what I was thrilled about was you saw Cliff Amori dominating down low both on defense and on offense, and snagging a bunch of rebounds without any, without them being contested, without any trouble, without any problems. Now, yes, is the defensive dominance necessarily indicative of how he's going to play going forward, given that the competition is going to be stiffer? Probably not. Even the rebounding ability, to some extent, can be questioned based on the level of competition. But the way that he was hitting his shots, making moves more fluently in the post, finding ways to get the ball to the rim, and then even on the rebounds, even if there is stiffer competition, the fact is he was just coming down cleanly with the ball. I have to say, I don't know if Cliff was battling some type of injury or if something else, some kind of ailment or something was slowing him down. It seemed like he was playing a little slower earlier in the season. This is the first game where I really looked at Cliff and said, okay, that's Cliff. That's the Cliff we know. And the fact that he was that fired up and that consistent in his play, from tip-off to the end of the game against a team that you don't necessarily consider, a formidable opponent, bodes very well for the future, because that shows that there's no just emotional playing up to competition or playing down to competition when he's not, emotionally vested in the game. That can't be it. It looks like whatever physical stuff was going on with Cliff is now, or at least as per this game, may be no longer a major concern, which is huge for this team going forward. So Cliff had a double-double. 14 rebounds, 17 points, played 28 minutes. The other key to this game, and I think it pertains to Cliff a lot, but the key to this game for the team as a whole that I noticed, and this is not going to always happen, so we can't get used to this, but the refs swallowed the whistle for a good portion of the game. And the fact is this: if I have to choose between a game that's being consistently called in a ticky-tacky way for both teams, or a game where the guys are allowed to play and be physical for both teams, as a Rutgers fan, I'm choosing 10 out of 10 times for the game to be more physical and for the refs to simply swallow their whistles on both sides. Unfortunately, you see a lot of inconsistency in college officiating where one team is getting more calls than the other, and that also causes issues, understandably. But when the game is physical, and when the officials are allowing the game to be physical, it seems to be usually advantage Scarlet Knights. Advantage Scarlet Knights. And I noticed early on in Pike's tenure in the Big Ten with Rutgers, the league in and of itself was very physical, and we succeeded. And that's why I think, to some extent, you can't explain everything that way, but to some extent, I think that some of our earlier teams, like the 2020 team and some of those teams that were the earlier tournament contenders, seemed like they were better or more consistent than our teams in the last 2 years. Part of it's shooting, and there's other things, of course, too. But I do think that the league, and I remember them saying this even on BTN Live, it was, the league wanted to emphasize offense, so they wanted to blow more whistles. They wanted to call more fouls, and they made it an emphasis, especially post 1920 season. And it changed the game a little bit. But long story short, when the game is more physical, when the teams are allowed to play a little more, Rutgers does better. And it starts with Cliff. He didn't get in early foul trouble, which was really a revelation. Almost all season he's been getting in early foul trouble. So him not getting in early foul trouble was huge. And then, the team being able to play physically on defense, get the ball out, not having to worry about a whistle every time they got physical and snatched the ball or fought over a ball or got physical down low or whatnot was a benefit to Rutgers. That's not going to happen every game, but it's just something to pay attention to. In those types of games where the officiating's going that way, it's going to benefit us. Another huge thing that, who knows if it stays consistent, but just another huge aspect of the game today was the free throw shooting. We were 16 of 18. 16 of 18, 88.9% from the charity stripe. That is huge. We have got to maintain that. So only 20% from 3 of 15, not the best. We've done much better. Field goal percentage, slightly under half, 49.3%, 33 of 67 for the team. But you saw Spencer have a solid game, 9 points, 2 assists, 3 rebounds. Caleb McConnell, and look, I've been saying this for a while, preseason. I'm never expecting Caleb McConnell to come out and light it on fire and be an offensive powerhouse the way you hope that a Derek Simpson may turn out to be, or the way Cliff can get when he's playing good down low, or Andre can have a game like that. But I did say that I wouldn't expect Caleb, especially if you look at his early career, before he really put a lot of emphasis on defense because he wanted to carve that out as his identity, which was smart and which obviously has been very successful. But early on in his career, he had a nice shot. And I said after that Notre Dame game that I expected Caleb McConnell to be more of an offensive force and more of an offensive consideration and contributor than he had been in the last couple of years. I expected him as a senior to add that to his game. And in certain games this year, he's done it. And when he's done it and done it consistently, the overall team is much better. Basketball is no different than a lot of other sports. When somebody's playing well and teams have to account for it, it allows everything else to open up for everybody. So Caleb playing well is also a good thing. 14 points, 7 assists, 3 rebounds. He was all over the place. 32 minutes. I think it was by far the most minutes on the team. That's the kind of player he is. That's the kind of guy Pike needs him to be, and he showed it today. When guys are all playing to their role, and Paul Mulcahy, 7 rebounds, 5 assists. I can tell you 6 points, and he had some nice moves, and he did some nice things with the ball. But I can stop just saying 7 rebounds, 5 assists, and he's done a lot. And he's done his job. This was an example of the team, especially the 5 starters and then the couple guys off the bench, playing their roles to the best of their ability and executing efficiently when they needed to. No missed layups, none of that stuff. Hitting their foul shots. High at 11 points, Simpson 10 points. Woolfolk, man, 5 points, 2 assists, 4 rebounds. So he played 9 minutes, so just solid time, backing up Cliff. You're looking at a guy in Woolfolk who I think is a very nice backup to Cliff and a formidable big man going forward. So it's nice to see his continued development. Dean got in there a little bit at the end. I think Woolfolk is just outplaying him right now. And I think Dean can still be a piece. And you've seen sometimes Dean goes in first, sometimes Antoine goes in. So I don't know necessarily. I'm sure that's matchup specific, game specific. I still expect Dean to be a contributor on the team, but you're seeing that he's losing some of that playing time to Woolfolk. But hey, that makes sense. That's what happens when a player plays well. Competition breeds better play, and it breeds harder practicing and whatnot. So it's good for everybody. But look, I'm not getting overly excited because it's Bucknell. It is what it is. I'll tell you what, you really wish, and we already felt this way, but you really wish, especially after that blowout win against Wake Forest at home, if we could just forget Temple, forget Miami, we had the injuries. I mean, if we could just get back that Seton Hall loss. Look, Seton Hall taking nothing away from them. They played us well. They played us hard. They had a great defensive game plan. I've said for a while that out-of-conference games are going to sometimes trouble us when the teams have relentless, quick perimeter players, and then they are quick enough to triple team and double team Cliff. And in those situations where he wasn't against Seton Hall and he was kind of struggling early in the season, when you have those perimeter players playing so well in the closeouts, you're going to need Cliff to dominate inside, and he just hadn't done it. But if he could play the way he did against Bucknell, we can counteract that. But you want that Seton Hall loss back, especially the way it went down at the end, missing all those shots at the end and only losing by 2. And the fact that Seton Hall this year is not great and we were home. You really want that Seton Hall loss back, and you really want that Ohio State loss back, because really, based on the rules and based on what the Big Ten said about the rules, that was not a loss. That shot did not count, and that was a win. But in the stat sheet and in the standings, it doesn't count as a win. It counts as a loss. And it's just, we're 8-4, and the truth is we could have been 10-2. And being 10-2 and being 8-4 is a big difference, especially with being 2-0 in the Big Ten. Everything looks different if we're 10-2. Now, it's disappointing that we're not, and you can sit there and cry over spilt milk and get upset about it, or we can say, look, despite tough losses against Temple and Miami, we had injuries in those 2 games, and but for a weird meltdown at Seton Hall, and but for, an officiating screw-up in Ohio, we would be 10-2. We could be undefeated, obviously, but you could play the what-if game all day. But at least we should be 9-3 because the Ohio State loss. But if you take just those 2 back, we could be 10-2. There's a lot of potential for this team. This team has no limitations. Everything this team wants to accomplish is still right in front of it. So they're going to have to go through this Big Ten slate and get some tough wins, that's for sure. But I know they can do it. Will they do it? We will see. But you'd like to see the 3-point percentage, tick up a bit from today. You'd like to see the fouls, the free throws and foul shots stay consistent. I'm sure it'll fluctuate, but you want to keep it as high as possible. And you want to continue to see every one of these players fitting into their role and executing properly in their given role, especially Cliff, especially Paul, and especially Caleb. So we've got another game coming up next week, another chill game. I will, in fact, be at that game, Coppin State, Friday. It's a Friday night game at 8. Should be fun. Before New Year's Eve, before New Year's, I'm going to go out to New Brunswick, have myself a steak or something, and then hit the game with a buddy of mine. So I'm excited about that one last game at home against the out-of-conference, and then we move on to our Big Ten slate, which is not easy. We start at number 1 Purdue, and then we're home against Maryland, home against Iowa. So we have our work cut out for us, and I'm sure Purdue wants revenge for last year. So, a lot of things to be happy about, a lot of things to take from this win, even though it was just Bucknell. There was still, I feel the team took a step today, and they probably didn't take it today. It just was evident to us today. They probably took this step during the week in practice, and with the little bit of time off that they had to reflect and clean things up. This is a Pike-type trend, and I can't blame Pike for the early losses either when the players weren't executing well. Or when the refs were screwing up. But this is indicative of a Pike team. They might struggle a little bit early to find their footing. Once you get post-New Year's, they start to turn it on, and they make a mad dash towards March. So let's hope that what I saw is what you saw, and that it's evident here, and that they actually are turning a corner. Guys, if you have any comments, questions, you agree with me, you disagree with me, suggestions, anything, post it in the comments right below. If you've watched the video and you've come this far, if you just smash subscribe. The subscribe button takes a millisecond. It's right underneath me. Hit the subscribe button. We're trying to grow this channel. It's a brand new baby channel. We want to get it higher. We want to have more content. We want to do more things. We want to have some live shows to do some conversation. I don't even think I have the live capabilities yet because we need more subscribers and more engagement. Everybody who is currently subscribing and takes the time to come watch the videos and has shared them and likes it when I post and clicks the like button, I really, really appreciate you. You are what's allowing me to keep this thing going, and we're all Knights fans. Everybody have a very Merry Christmas. Have a happy holiday season, but I'll speak to you hopefully New Year's weekend after this next game. And if anything else pops up, I'll touch base with you during the week. But just click subscribe, go Knights, and Merry Christmas. Talk to you soon.